Hi, welcome back. We are going to be talking how a little bit about why the test popularity is so important. How come this is something that affected us so much when we were young? And how come it's something we seem to kind of gravitate toward for the rest of your lives? Well, let's talk about that a little bit. On things going to point out this idea that things has become really explicit. Have you ever noticed recently if you are the web, there are a lot of information about the trading, whether you are on Twitter or where you just even look at a news story of anything you see. You'll sometimes see the graphics and talk about how many times can the story be tweeted, or how many people have liked it Facebook, or how many comments are there, and often they are right in the top of the story. In fact, even after you done reading and story, there may be shoes icon again. Encourage you should tweet about, and you should like on the Facebook. Why is that happening? We are kind of almost grown accustomed to it. I think one the reason why this is happening and because it's basis of this fundamental premise that if we see that a lot of people are really interested in something, we will think somehow it's good, it's important. We want to do what everyone is doing even if we resist an idea and the thing. Now I am an individual, I don't just conform. Still, we are kind of a bit influenced by that. We think, well, it's worth something that 3,000 other people have liked. Then it must be something really important that I need to look at. It's the same thing when you watch a commercial and they say this is the number on movie at the box office. They're really trying to pull on the idea that it's popular and therefore that means it's good. But why does it work so well? Why do we even care about the fact that everyone else is doing it? I want to read the news stories that I think they're of interest to me, and I don't think my interests that are going to be the same and 10,000 other people and read the same news story. So why would I automatically think that that's important? It turns out that a lot of this might have to do with the way we developed as a species, and way that we can think about it took a step way back and thought about it from an evolutionary perspective. So let's go back to the war of caveman and cavewoman and really thought about the life was like and the time, because it's how we developed the brand we have today. And sounds a long time ago. That's not very long, and from the perspective of our biological development. So there are a lot of ways that won't happen back there and still including us today, and it is still including how our brain works. So, have you even noticed how young the other people around you will young like in the context? Or have you even heard that when women like together in close quarterly or spend a lot of time together, the menstrual cycle will start to synchronize? That all has to do with some idea here, with the science and where we are cave people. A long time ago we quickly learning that we are going to do a lot better if we are alive together. And if we kind of pay attention to signals from each other, So if you think about it, if you want on your own, well, you will have a hard time getting food, right? And if you got food and you killed something like a giant wild beast or whatever, you're not going to be able to eat that all by yourself. So it's really in fiction. And if you try to save the rest of it's going to spoil and you're going to get sick and die, and evolutionary you are going to be weeded out. So we really learn that in coming to food, same with safely protection one another. Or when it comes to other way of coordination activities, like then should we all to sleep. That way we can and go to the next part of the way nomadic group, so that help us get to the next part of the way trying to move to. It would be good if there was a synchronized and we were is heard and we learn to be heard, and the more you stay in the herd, the more you sleep when everyone sleeps. That way we can work together, move together at the same time. The more that everyone stops to give birth into conceived new babies, that should all happen at the same time. We would all eat together, they should all protect each other. If you are living and here where choose things, we be shaded. You won't get food, you won't be safe, you won't stop and the same times at other, and you might they kick it out. You might be alone, you might be in face, and that's not good for you. The people that did what they were weeding out natural selection were all the people that survived by learning to pay attention to what their heart has to say. It turned out that have had a really cool and double effect of how our brains are put together, but we just recently discovered this in ways and the kind of didn't even expect. So there have been a lot of researchers that have been interested in understanding how the brain works, and in particular there have been a lot of people that have looked at how the brain kind of lighted up in an fMRI that say the expected pain. So what I mean by that is there have been a lot of studies where they have asked people to lay down fMRIs. They're kind of lying there and they show them a screen out the head, and they give them an opportunity to experience some types of stimuli. Now in some cases sounds mind to real life stimuli, so while their hand is sticking and on the fMRI they might get a little pricks or some sort of painful stimulus, and when it happens the fMRI would allow them to see what areas of the brain are kind of lightened up, and what we are learning have very reliably for a very long time were seen and researched that there are particular areas that tell out that the expensive pain and the areas that tell it's time to start regularly this pain and doing something about it. Now, the parts of our brain that signal pain, it's really important because the pain is our worth of. It's the brain's way of telling as something very serious is happening, you need to do something about it. This is going to threaten your survival. So point is kind of the most powerful signal that the brains can give us, to tell us that if we don't do something soon, we may die of our expenses, may be in trouble. Well, interesting this happens. So, there were some researchers, including Noah Mesri from UCLA, who decided to do some studies looking at people in the fMRI machine in the magnet. And they asked them on instead of getting real pain, then asked them participate in some interactions they were getting, including by others. And the way that this worked was sometimes there were real people thankful they communicating with while they were in the magnet. And sometimes they were just pretends, by as the way the experiments for it together to the person in the fMRI magnet, it sounded that they been included and that others were choosing not to interact with them. So in a way, it was kind of like they were getting a signal saying you are getting kicked out the head. You are not part of the group anymore, you are getting included. It turned out they were very surprised to find that where people got the signal to say that they were getting included, the parts of the brain and lit up where the parts of the brain light up where they experience real physical pain. And this kind of led to the idea that their mind is something called social pain. They experience social inclusion in the exact some way they experience physical pain. In fact, there is even research to search if take a Tylenol, then that helped your social pain go down, just like it helped your physical pain go down. So maybe this is why even the way that we say in the English your language tend and mirror the idea of pain. We talk about heartbreak of homesickness. It's the idea they experience physical symptoms from a social rejection experience. So it kind of suggests there somewhere that the lack of popularity makes them experience pain, and our brain staying us with its most powerful signal and need to do something about it. Don't get kicked out the heart. Make sure that you are safe. It turns out that there are some other research also that had to do with our DNA that found this even more powerful than the even result. But before talking about it, I just have to tell you briefly about something that I really knew, and its idea of epigenetic. Epigenetic is really the science that while we all have our DNA and every single cell in our bodies has DNA in its nucleus. The DNA not every gene is turned on. Some genes turn off later and some genes never turn on. Both they were recently learning in epigenesis is then something what makes two cells turn on. Central DNA in something that happening on the every mountain. So, believe it or not, something could walk in the room, they could say hello to you, or they could say something not pleasant to you, that kind of reject you. And that will actually affect then happens into you ourselves. And the reasons why this important is because, as you probably know, many of our cells are doing every second. New cells are growing every second, so if expected happens to you now, the cells will start growing 2 seconds from now. They're going to start releasing of the DNA that was activated by that happening to you before. In fact, it's been suggested that every 6 months or so where a person and is reactive to what's happening to us and those pre-tells about 6 months ago. So we're constantly new revealing people that are living sounds epigenesis based on what happened in months before. It turned out of social experience have an incredibly important impact of the DNA. So for some reasons we talked about before with Hawking this evolutionary legacy, we are learning that something happens to us that makes us feel regenerates our bodies to specific DNA, and the DNA the turn of has to do with the psychical health. So again, let's a game about people. If you were a person that was living back into times of the things that happened, then you lived with other. Is you found the total of a cold, and the reasons why because virus spread from human to human. So as long as you interact with other people, your DNA is activated or develop immunity to viruses. And all the genes that help us to resist virus upregulating. In the other words, they are kind of turning on. If you were part in the health, there was much less of a change that the dinosaur was going to come into your arm off. There was the wouldn't have to have all of the eliminatory type of response as your body to quick heal the bleeding limb and keep you survive the would need that can't improve immunization protection as much. Well, what happens the minute they get reduced by others, the actuality finds the genes that help the resist virus become down-regulated. In fact, you can take a blood the 40 minutes later and find you can see the signal of the quickly. Meanwhile, the inflammatory response is upregulated. So, of course, if something happened to you for a minute today, that doesn't mean how doing to have a immunity disease necessary. But if you experience chronic rejection, there's so much time especially the feeling that you are not part of the health. You are not someone that accepted and popular over time that self-being continually develops this up-reglement and further response. So it turns out the popularity is actually changing the way our DNA expresses. This has major implication for healthly, and it turns out that there's a way that has a feedback loop into our brain, and it even changes our mood and our experience too, and we'll talk about more of that later. So in summary, it's important to remember the reason why it seems to care so much about popularity is that our patients sounds about being their health and something they need for safety. And the minute they lose popularity, our body is preparing if that will happen, we are kicked out the head. And our brain is telling us with the most powerful signal you are needing to do something to fix this. Go back to others, do what you can and be part of the group. And that's really important, our DNA is changing. This is all very adaptive, but unfortunately it's not really helpful for us today in the millennium that we live in now. You can go out for a fun walk you own and not get eaten by a dinosaur. So fortunately, our bodies that happen is in a way that would have been useful millions of years ago. but it's not necessarily helpful in today's society, and some of the reasons why poverty plays such a hard role today, but it has effect on us that aren't necessary that the world have wished for.